And Fidelity, we're a private company that's been in business for 80 plus years, and it's in the DNA. We just you must constantly think and be creative, and we love the academic stuff, so I do. It's great.
Yeah, one thing I'll add there is that, once everybody decides, and I call it the group nod, once you get the group nod and everyone contributes, then you have an objective. And your objective is execution against that particular deliverable. And that has to be intentional in its purpose. Everyone has to say, that is our objective, because then you can set aside individual needs and wants and focus really on that thing, and it becomes the most important thing. And that's very difficult, actually, in kind of the collegial group consensus setting, because you have to set aside your individuality for the moment and pursue that thing. But teams that do that can be extremely effective. But it definitely has to be intentional, and you definitely have to be able to set things aside to be able to go do it. And along the way, you have to, if you're guiding that team, you have to constantly go back to cheerleading towards that particular deliverable, because people will sort of like feel maybe set aside or discounted or what have you. And so this is a very important thing to remember once you do move into that execution or validation or de-risking. And for those that are looking for extreme valuation in terms of where they're going, the key is validation, because it leads to de-risk, and capital always seeks the least risk, most efficient mechanism to expand. And that comes through validation and de-risk.
Yeah, I think that focus on the end goal is so important once you've got, as you described, the group nod in place. So, I mean, our role, we effectively are is a real early stage investor. We go into companies at pre-seed stages where no sane commercial investor would invest in them, and we have the ability to do that because our funds are raised from the state, so we can get a right blend in that fund and take the risk, the higher risk, and still seek to get things started. But it came through, I think, earlier on as well, in what Nora spoke about, that importance of having the vision. So knowing what it is you as a group, you as a team are chasing after, and that means your belief in the problem that you're trying to solve, and that you can validate a solution to that. But it's also your belief that you can build a valuable business out of this, right? So not only are you now taking that creative thing that came from it, which was the idea and the concept, and you're bringing it forward and validating that with customers, but you're also building a business, potential sustainable business around that. You're looking at things like potential revenues, when should revenues come in, and business models around that. And that's all part of that validation step of getting from that kind of, creative stage of we've mashed it all together, we've come up with something really cool, and now we need to start worrying about other elements of that in order to make it sustainable. But with the end goal having to be on an outcome, and for us that outcome is a commercial realization of market capital value, and even anchoring around that as a goal gives transforms an entity. And this is why, again, the focus on investing in a venture at that point of the development of any idea is an important transformative step for them.
Yeah, I think, again, if you're thinking data science is the buzzword, right, and data analytics, and it's really a collaboration of multidisciplines and thinking. So you may have your mathematicians, your statisticians, your technicians, but you may have an anthropologist, you may have a historian or a musician who study patterns, and you may be looking at the consumer and trying to understand that, but you may also be saying, well, gosh, with all this incredible technology and access to information, you also have the risk of bad people getting that information and using it inappropriately. So how do you take the thought of those behaviors in data scientists where you're looking for a business opportunity for consumer behavior, and maybe turn that around and say, well, I want to study the same patterns of the bad guys, and how do you use those same technical skills, even though they may sit in different areas of an organization, to manage the risk, the market risk, the credit risk, the people risk. So I do think, again, it's thinking differently, but there is no substitution that once you figure out what the goal is, and you figure out what you want to do, the plan, the focus to finish and execute is absolutely critical with your partners. Otherwise, it doesn't, you know, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
It's important not to chase the unicorn either. We're on a building trajectory here over time, right? You know, 5 years ago, we didn't have anywhere near the startup scene and the kind of early stage venturing scene that we have in the country at the present time, right? 20 years ago, we didn't have anywhere near the R&D type of capability we have at the present time. So it's a long trajectory. We don't want to take it too long about it, but you know, it is a case of building enough of these things such that the pipeline is strong. The country becomes more attractive for international money to invest in. It becomes more recognized internationally as a driver of innovation, and that in itself starts bringing new capabilities into the country to actually start building our own companies, you know, larger companies in the longer term. Our focus is very much about building that indigenous capability for new venturing and helping them get that first point across the line so as they can become large enterprises. And you know, the likes of Fieldware, for example, is one of those companies now that has got up to many tens of millions in value, having started out with us maybe about 5 years ago at this stage. So it can come in time, but it does take time to get there.
You know, one of the things that the Bay Area, they all have in common is that their cultures, they want to make as much money as possible. I mean, that's the bottom line. And they could hate each other. I mean, in fact, many of them do. And they really just agree to make as much money as they possibly can. Now, it's hard to compete against, if your goal is to make money, it's hard to compete against that system. So perhaps there is a different goal that you can achieve that same level of, let's say, capital achievement. But underlying all that, you have to get good at success. So it will take time. You have to practice being good at success. So one of the things that's most difficult for an entrepreneur, and I'm certainly one of them, is that if somebody comes to buy your company, my advice is sell it. Because you will have another opportunity. This is not the last deal that you have. This is not your baby. This is an investment. And this is an opportunity to learn and to do the next thing. And there's this sense that, oh, I won't have any more ideas. I won't have any more time. I won't have any more markets. And no, get over it. Get your experience now, layer the next thing, and layer the next thing. And after 10 years, you'll have a whole cross-section of people that have had this experience. And it will lead to the first $1 billion exit and the second $1 billion exit. And it will take some time, but get good at it, and don't panic about short-term success. It's okay, and then it will lead to long-term success. That would be my encouragement to anybody out there.